恭敬大德僧人，为此法会济一切众生，请转妙法轮教导我们如何了生脱死，离苦得乐，助证无生。为了三大为great virtue, out of compassion for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, Christian, the wonderful Dharma will to teach us how to live suffering and attend bliss and birth and death, and quickly realize number.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo sadanto suchedoye alahadi samyao sanpatoshe.
Namo sadanto suchedoye alahadi samyao sanpatoshe.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in billions of eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Venerable Master, Dharma friends, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Hung Shur. Today is Sunday, April 4th, and this is, I'm coming to you from Gold Coast, Queensland, and we are about to launch into our lecture on the Flower Garland Sutra, the 10 Stages chapter. And I'm getting feedback from our engineer who says that the network is in yellow, but it's okay now. The video is not smooth. So we just did a speed test and had 48 down and 17 up. So, okay, video is fine, good. So you can see we're in a different hall than recently. This is our magnificent Dharma hall. Earth-store Bodhisattva, Amitabha Buddha is here behind me. Numerous other Buddha images that if I get out of the way, you can appreciate. So this is one of the other sacred spaces here at the Gold Coast Dharma Realm. And today we're going to be continuing with our investigation of the verses of the 10th stage, the stage of the Dharma cloud. And the way we do that is we actually, the text invites us to intone, to chant. So we're adding just a little touch of a melody to the verses, both in Chinese and English. You're welcome to join me in that. So to get started, here we go. When we're back, we're going to come back to page 84. But first, we're going to go up to the top page that says Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Huayan Jing Huayan Hai Wei Fo Pusa. That's what we're going to be chanting. And I also want to express my appreciation to the folks, the volunteers who are translating my English words into Mandarin and also into Vietnamese, so that our audience around the world can expand and can hear the Dharma in a language that they're comfortable with. So. Namo Dhamma Quang Phu Wan Jin Wan Hai Bo Sa Namo Dhamma Wan Jin Wan Hai Bo Sa Namo Dhamma I love to imagine the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas coming in with smiles on their faces, sound of a banjo. Banjo is really a people's instrument, and pretty much every culture in the world has strung a string down a stick attached to a gourd and made music with it. Back to page 84, and we are. Okay, the way we're going today is I looked at the collection of verses. There are 40 some verses to summarize the whole 10th stage. And the idea of the verses is they repeat what was explained already in the prose. And sometimes it's really terse. You only get a line or two to refer to an entire chunk of teaching that we experienced during the when we went to the prose. And so what occurred to me was I have some very personal experiences the verbs that came to me were struggling with or aiming at, encountering these teachings. If that sounds humble, yeah. This is the 10 stages. This is the blueprint for Bodhisattva path. And when the personal experiences I had with this, or when I read it for the first time, or had a chance to bow to it, or had these principles running through my mind, and then sometimes very dramatically, I had a feeling that a door opened up in my life related to the text, and I walked through it and everything was different. So a whole level of encounters with the wisdom of this scripture, right? This is a holy book, but boy, it's so much more than what I understood a holy book could be. It was like a mirror looking into my face, and the reflection coming back was not all that pretty. So I thought, instead of just running through the text and pointing at the various principles, I thought maybe slow down a little bit and share the experiences that I've had with it. And if that's okay with everybody, today is one of those pieces of text that had a significant transformative effect in my life. So I thought to just the amount of text we're going to cover today, the number of verses is few, but the so if that's the skeleton, if that's the 2x4s and the rebar, then we're going to fill in the flesh and blood, put in the wallboard and the insulation and the roof with the stories around the text. Okay, mixing my metaphors left and right. All right, so we've come to the verses, talked about it, anticipated it for weeks and weeks. We're here now, and we've said that verse number 1, verse number 2, verse number 3, and verse number 4 are preparation for what's to come. And the essentially what the first 4 verses did was establish motive. Why the Bodhisattva wants to pursue this course of education. What is he or she after? And the thing that repeats over and over is the Bodhisattva makes a resolve, brings forth a great resolve. Even, fa da xin says in Chinese. And what this is talking about is a thought in the mind that becomes a turning point. It's one of those moments in the life of your mind where nothing is the same afterwards, right? And you can remember it. It's not like one of those thoughts in a stream that just was washed downstream in the torrent of random thoughts. This one is a boulder in that torrent. It's a bend in the river, if we're using a river metaphor. Everything changes from this point. And you, in your life, have had those moments, I'm sure. Sometimes they're, life moments, a marriage, a childbirth, a loss of a job, an accident, a holiday, a lonesome hike to the mountaintop. Things that for you made a difference. Everything was different after that. So this text describes the Bodhi resolve, the Putishin, this thing called bodhicitta sometimes, the wish for awakening, all the different translations of it. And that is the landmark moment in the path of the Bodhisattva, is that resolution. Alex, would you mind getting a Kleenex? I could use a Kleenex. I'm poking my nose. People, the purists among us are going, look at it, he's scratching his head and then touching the text. How can he do that? That's because my nose itches. So we are in the middle of another rain pattern. La Nina is not done with Southwest Queensland. And so I don't want to sneeze directly into the microphone. That's not fair to you all. And this microphone doesn't turn off the way the other mic has a cough button, and I don't. So I'm going to try to sneeze not into the mic. All right. The Bodhi resolve is what happens in preparation for what is the first step onto the DE number 1, Huanqi Di, stage of happiness, right? That's where we are, right here. And I'm going to give a line, and you all, wherever you're listening, if you'd like to give a line back, maybe you just hum it. Maybe you got people around you who will look at you funny if you do it, so you have to kind of do it in your mind. Maybe you can sing it right out. So feel free, but I'm going to give you the line. Here we go. 诸于处地生实心，诸于处地生实心，用力中恶常欢喜，用力中恶常欢喜，愿力光修诸善法，愿力光修诸善法， 以悲悯故如后悔，以悲悯故如后悔。All right. Abiding on the first stage, he makes a resolve. Abiding on the first stage, he makes a resolve. Beyond any evil doing, he always feels happy. Beyond any evil doing, he always feels happy. He makes vows to cultivate wholesome methods. Makes vows to cultivate wholesome methods. Filled with compassion, he masters all the successive stages. Filled with compassion, he masters all the successive stages. Bodhisattva now abides on the first stage, and he makes a resolve. We've got that. It's a thought. It's that one thought that somehow comes right from the core of who you are. And how do you know? How do you know if that's the real Bodhi resolve? Well, I don't think it's a make it or break it. I don't think it's a once and done. I think it's because it's an important thought and because it tallies with your heart, something you really want. So you make it over and over again. It comes up again and again. Because it's important to you, you don't forget. And so what kind of a thought would that be? It would have to be one that is supported by your everyday reality. It's not, I don't think these Bodhi resolves are, oh, I was on that 10-day Vipassana retreat and it was the 9th day and I was never so clear and I fasted the day before and I was just, didn't sleep and somehow I felt like I was 100 feet up in the air and I made this thought, I mean, that may be your experience, but I don't think that's sustainable. The Bodhi resolve that is happening here is, notice, filled with compassion. He masters all the successive stages. The Bodhisattva has been looking and listening carefully, to the world around him. And it's precisely what he sees and hears, or what she hears and sees and hears, that moves him to compassion. And the Bodhi resolve, again, for folks who may not have heard this breakdown, the Chinese way, the traditional way in China to describe the Bodhi resolve is, you go, Shang Cheng Fo Dao, Xia Hua Zhong Zheng, they say. And, there's the pointing. And I think that needs unpacking and interpreting. If we translated it right off the words, we would say above becoming a Buddha and below teaching living beings. And that doesn't connect with my understanding of where the Buddha really is. The Buddha is not up above and living beings are not down below. I think it's not spatial, it's not above and below, it's time, it's temporal, which means what? Ultimately, I'm going to become a Buddha. I know I can, I don't lack anything, but immediately, right now, Dangxia, under my feet, with my next step, I'm going to get to work to bring the living beings in my mind who are so frustrated, doubtful, depressed, angry, all the things that they are, sometimes happy, sometimes joyful, sometimes satisfied. I'm going to bring them to the middle way. I think that's the Bodhi resolve. So it's not Shang Cheng Fo Dao, is ultimately, I'm going to become a Buddha. Xia Hua Zhong Sheng. And the way I get there to become a Buddha is make everybody who I live with in my ecosystem, that is my mind and body, make them happy, make them peaceful, make them contented and focused on the way. Ultimately to cross them over, quote, to let them go. Right? So I think that's how it works. And compassion arises because why? Bodhisattva looks around and realizes how unhappy so many people are, how unsatisfied, and what a strange world we have, where politically, economically, physically, we are seen to be broken from the way our ideal world would be, right? So the Bodhisattva says, the more I learn about the way things are, the more I want to help people. So the Bodhi resolve has to connect with the world around you, or it's not going to be sustainable. It'll be a flash, and then business as usual, back to my daily confusion, you know, and I sometimes get it and mostly don't. Sometimes surface and take a deep breath, and mostly I'm down in my confusion, right? So abiding on the first stage now, this Bodhisattva makes that resolve, and she is beyond evil, li zhong e, it says, right? How does it go? Yong li zhong e, forever away from doing harm to self or others. Chang Han Xi, always feels happy. That's the name of this first stage. Makes vows to cultivate wholesome methods. Now, here's a case of when I said it's just one line. Fa yuan, yuan li, how did it go? Yuan li guang xiu zhu shanpa. Makes vows to cultivate wholesome methods. In the text, the first stage text, I vow to this, and this paragraph after paragraph of incredible wholesome practices the Bodhisattva is going to do. And, you know, this is down in one line. Filled with compassion, he masters all the others. Okay, take a look here. Second stage text for my Dharma brother who is translating. Pop that up a little bigger. Okay, here we go. This is the, oops, sorry, that's not what I want. I won't show you that one. I want to show you something else. Here we are. We're on the first stage, the stage of happiness. And the Bodhisattva says, I experience happiness because I have left all alarming, hair-raising, and other such experiences far behind. And why? Once these bodhisattvas attain the stage of happiness, they leave all fears behind. That is to say, fear of having no livelihood, fear of a bad reputation, fear of death, fear of the evil destinies, and fear of the awe-inspiring virtue of the assembly. All such fears, such as these, are ultimately left behind. Okay, look at that. There we go. That's the fivefold fears. And this comes up, it's just dropped right into the first stage of happiness, that first text. And I read it, I recited it, I, thought about it, but then I can't recall exactly what the moment was, but these five just popped up into my awareness as a central unit in the first stage of happiness. What is it? Fear, less. Yes. What are the fivefold fears? Well, they certainly make you not happy. If as much as my life is, propelled by fear and haunted by fear, let's translate fear. What? Terror. Heard that word since 9/11? Terror. What about anxiety? That's a kind of a fear. What about just, in Chinese, there's so many, 恐怖, they say. And then, 怕. And then they say 害怕. And then they say 恐惧. There's so many words just in Chinese, as well as English, for different kinds of terror. How important is getting rid of fear for the Bodhisattva who wants to be on the stage of happiness? Okay, so look at this. There are five that the Buddha described. And as soon as I realized, oh my gosh, the Buddha's talking about how to get rid of fear, suddenly my antenna, beep, 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 beep. And the order they're in, I think, is fascinating. check this out. Right. So what the first one is, 无明畏, right? These are all the wu wei for helping out my translating Dharma brothers. Wu Ming wei, a way of fear, which is this one. We're working with the text here. Let's see, where is fear? Oh, it's one of those down. Okay, wait, there's number 4. Okay, so Wu Ming Wei. What is Ming Wei? The next one, fascinating. Ming, but a different Ming. Wei. The third one is Si Wei. Fourth is Dao. Wait. And this last one is so interesting. Da Zhong. Wei, lots of Wei sounds. Wei de, wait. Okay, there it is in Chinese. Okay, first one, no livelihood means what? Means you don't know how you're going to provide for you and your family. That fear, according to the Buddha, comes first in the list. And what gets me about it is just having the Buddha underline it and say, right, this is a motivator. Have you ever tossed and turned at night thinking, how am I going to put food on the table? Well, when so many folks have lost their jobs, the jobs are actually gone because the industries that created those jobs are gone. Nobody's been to work for a year and more, right? Yeah. We've come face to face around the world, and particularly in America, with this reality that having no, we're not worried about yourself, but what about your kids? What about your dependent parents? What about your other relationships that look to you as the breadwinner and you have nothing? That's a fear. Okay. What does the Buddha say? The Buddha says, all such fears, such as these, are ultimately left behind. Why? Because the Bodhisattvas have no thought of self. So somebody asked the question, what does the Buddha say to resolve these fears? How do you get past the fear? Well, Buddha says the Bodhisattva can do that because at this point in progress to the first stage, right? This is not starting from zero. He has been making vows. He has been doing all kinds of giving. He's been making the Bodhi resolve. He said, I'm going to become a Buddha. I'm going to do it by giving to living beings, making them peaceful and calm. So at this point, he is free from the thought of self. His own issues don't arise as they did before. They don't attach to their bodies how much wealth and possessions. Therefore, they have no fear of loss of livelihood. Okay, so the verb there would be don't attach. They don't attach to their bodies. Meaning, of course, if they're healthy and strong and their bodies are good, you use their bodies well. But should illness come, should hunger come, there's no fear. They can let it go because they've already conquered that. They've already let go that number one attachment, which is to the constructed, fleeting view of what's good for me and mine. Okay. How much the less do they attach to wealth and possessions? So no fear of loss of livelihood. Okay. That's right directly from the first stage. Okay. Number 2, look at this. The number 2 motivator is what? loss of face, 恶名, bad name, bad reputation. Now somebody goes, oh, come on, that's worse than the fear of death. Think about it. We in the US right now, in Australia right now, European tradition, well, no, I won't go there. I'll just say, speak from my own experience growing up in the US. Bad reputation was not a motivator. I mean, while I keep this lecture politics free, we have spent 4 years being led by someone who had no fear of bad reputation. You want to say I'm bad? I'll sue you directly, sue back. So it's like in cultures where family name is paramount, to lose reputation. And what would that be? Well, the Mediterranean cultures, for example, Italy, Greece. Our dear friend, Dr. Akpinar, she grew up in Yugoslavia, and she said that she knew families who could tell you insults given to their family in the year 1500. They hadn't forgotten. 400 years later, that slight to the family name, that feud, still going, right? In the US, we have the Hatfields and the McCoys, right? This feud carried over from Europe to the Appalachians, and they can't let it go, right? Because why? You slandered, you insulted, you stole their good name. Shakespeare said, you steal my purse, you steal trash. If you steal my good name, you do me grievous harm. Because you can't get it back once it's out that some scandal, right? So my goodness, how powerful is shame cultures versus merit cultures, right? If you have enough money in our current typical culture, doesn't matter what you do, you're rich, right? Oh my goodness. There are cultures where if, for example, I know when I was living in Taiwan, I was fascinated by it. And I asked, why, tell me why, when I say, who has a question, all the young people look at their shoes. They look left, they look right. If I say in a Western audience, I'm in Cleveland, and I say, who's got a question? I got a question. Call on me first. I call on me. Why is it so different? And it has to do with this reputation. The idea in Taiwan was, oh, my older brother is sitting down there. I don't dare speak first. He will speak for the Wong family. He will speak for the Li family, the Chun family, the Lin family. If grandpa's in the room, you don't speak over grandpa, And the way genders work, if the husband is there, the wife wouldn't dare, Now, younger generations are not doing it the same way. Younger generations leave Taiwan, you go to Stanford to get educated, you learn to ask questions first. But the power of a bad reputation is a real motivator to fear. So what does the Bodhisattva say? He says, they do not seek offerings from others, but only to give to other living beings. Therefore, they have no fear of a bad reputation. So you yourself know that the reason for a certain behavior was a wish to benefit. And you're not afraid that others will slander you, because why? You know your motive was pure. That's enough to not fear. You get through the fear of bad reputation. Okay, number 3, death. Okay, look at this one. They know that after death, they will not be far from the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So who's afraid of dying? When you die, you know your destination. You're going to be right there with the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So death, that's just a change, right, for this Bodhisattva. So now this is not easy, is it? But this is the fivefold fears. I thought number 4, evil destinies. This one is a challenge because why? If you as a child have not been educated, if you've not been given a traditional education about the cosmos, about heaven and earth and on beyond, then maybe you don't even know about the hells. Maybe you've never heard about the ghosts. Maybe animals for you are your pet, your goldfish, your puppy, you know, your parakeet. So why would the evil destinies, the hells, animals, and the ghosts be frightening? Compare that with people who have heard, for example, who have encountered the Bodhisattva Sutra or the Buddhist teachings, or, you know, many religions do include teachings about other realms beyond the human realm. That are some that are just awful, suffering, right? So when we get to the Dharma, the Buddha describes 10 Dharma realms, 6 for mortals, people who are still on the samsaric wheel, birth and rebirth, death and rebirth, death and rebirth. 4 who have transcended samsara and reached nirvana. Those would be sages, the 4 realms of sages. 10 Dharma realms, 十法界. Master Hua says, 不离一念心. They're connected to a single thought of the mind. When you hear that, then the idea that you could leave this body and fall into the hells, suddenly that's a motivator. You look at animals, right? For example, and how they live in the moment. And while they, you know, they're always on an edge, the slightest noise and the birds fly away, because there's a fear, a deep-seated fear of death, or a love of self-preserving their lives, survival, right? But if you ask a dog, you know, are you afraid of becoming a ghost? You know, they're just right there. Hello. You know, there's not that conceptual knowledge of what might happen after they leave their dog's body. Humans have this ability to seek to transcend suffering and fear to increase suffering. So the idea that you could become an animal, you could become a ghost, you could fall into the hells. It's teenagers, you know, it's like, yeah, mom, okay. Meanwhile, I'm off with my buds, you know. Teenagers don't have, even though they're human, don't seem to have that conceptual ability, you know. But what an interesting idea that it takes a certain amount of education to bring the reality that the hells are going strong right this minute, haven't stopped. They don't take a holiday. They don't wait for Easter, right? They continue hot, stoked, full. That's, you don't want to tell people a story to frighten them, but on the other hand, at some point, the reality of the 3 evil destinies breaks through, and it's like, oh my goodness, that is a possibility. So what does a bodhisattva do? They know that after death, they will certainly not be far from, oh, you know, I read it wrong. I said for the fear of death, I said they have left the view of self far behind, no thought of self, so therefore no thought of death. I read number 4 is remedy for number 3. Number 4 is remedy. At death, they're not going to be far from Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, so how could they fear the evil destinies? They're going up, not down at death. Now, how do we make that come alive? Shifu's point in the verses that he wrote, he said the 10 Dharma realms are not far from a single thought of the mind. 不离一念心. So what we do with our minds determines where we go after we leave this body, right? Do we use our mind to benefit? Do we use our mind to focus on the Dharma? If so, then the wholesome seeds that we plant with each thought of the Dharma determines where we go, right? For example, Samantabhadra Bodhisattva has these 10 vows. And on vow number 10, he is called Transference, transferring to everybody all the time. And the vows of transference that Samantabhadra gives include this one. He says, may all the doors to the evil destinies close. May all the wholesome paths of humans, devas, and nirvana open for living beings. 关闭一切诸恶趣门，开示人天涅槃正路. He says, may the doors to the 关闭一切诸恶趣门, may all the doors to the evil destiny close. 开示, and may all of the doors, the proper roads, the doors to the right roads of the humans, devas, and nirvana open. So if when I'm going through the world, looking at things that happen around me, if I use my mind to, let's say I want to bless a situation, I want to leave the situation better than I found it, and I send out goodness, say, you know, I'm looking at these birds eating insects, and I'm looking at the insects. They're alive a minute ago, and now they're in a bird's stomach, right? And you think, can I say a prayer for the insect that was eaten and the bird that has taken the life of the insect in order to live, right? Mutual killing and consumption, that's the animal's realm. I want to pray on behalf of the birds and the insects. May they leave the realm of animals and insects and close those doors to the evil destinies. May they become humans, devas. May they leave suffering altogether. If I do that kind of thing, that's just a simple example from my life because I live with the birds and the insects. But think about, you know, we watch entertainments that are full of killing, humans killing each other, cops and robbers. You know, the citizens of a country invaded by aliens from outer space, and the aliens send a death ray and wipe out a city. You know, with that kind of suffering floating around in our consciousness, we call it entertainment. Can I, at that point in my mind, think, I would like to close the doors to the hells, the animals, and the ghosts. And I would like to open the doors so that beings who are in transition right now can go off to rebirth, come back as a human in a better situation, blessings and abundance. Can they come back as a deva in the heavens? They can leave suffering altogether. If I do that a lot, if every situation I see, I'm out there kind of planting the seeds of ending suffering, one by one, situation by situation, my mind, bit by bit, becomes a garden of all those wholesome thoughts that I planted. And so that's Samantabhadra's prayer, and I like that prayer. There's a lot more to it, but that's the text of vow number 10 of chapter 40 of the Pushen Hangyenpin, right? So you can find that if you want. Go to Samantabhadra's Practices and Vows chapter from the Avatamsaka and find that vow number 10, universally transferring merit. And there's, you know, he says, yeah, close the hells, close the ghosts, close the animals realm. We want a world full of beings who don't suffer that way, you know. And you go, I like that. That's what? Psychic engineering, spiritual engineering 101. Do it yourself. Don't wait to be saved. Go out and save others one thought at a time. Yeah, why not? Okay. So here's the Bodhisattva. He says, after death, they're not going to be far from the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So they have no fear of falling in the evil destinies. They know they're going to be with the beings who live in that same garden that they've created. We do it ourselves. DIY, spiritual engineering, do it yourself. Finally, now this one is really fun. This was unexpected. And I thought, yay, Buddha, yay, first stage Bodhisattva. Look at that. What's the frightening thing that everybody experiences? 大眾威德畏, the awe-inspiring virtue of the assembly. Translate that, stage fright. How interesting. The Buddha knows that we can be like, you know, yeah, nothing gets me. Yeah, all right, yeah, see you later, fellas. Yeah, we're, you know, pretty much in charge of our world. Stand in front of 3 of your peers and everybody's quiet waiting for you to talk. And we're like, no, is this on? Tap, tap, tap. This isn't working. Unaccustomed as I am to public speaking. Yeah. Something happens. We get this frog that lands on us. Where did that frog come from? You know? And we can't talk because why? Stage fright. It's really true. It's really true that standing up in front of others, and if you're not talking, it's silent, that's intimidating. We sweat, flop sweat. Suddenly there are these soaking underarms because we're sweating. Our stomach flips over, right? Oh my goodness, stage fright is real. Who? The pianist, Vladimir Horowitz, okay? The wonderful, oh my goodness, Jewish maestro. People love to hear Horowitz play Chopin, you know, Bach, whatever he sat down to play. But Maestro Horowitz, horrible, crippling stage fright. And so he was able to overcome it. So we have records of his wonderful performances, but it's much more widespread than you would think. What does the Bodhisattva say? He says, my intent in every world is unequaled and unsurpassed. So I have no fear of the awe-inspiring virtue of the assembly, which means what? It means he knows when it's his turn, her turn to speak, that their job is to give. My intent, my inclination is pure. I have things to say that I want to give to others. So even if I have to say it and my voice cracks, right? Even if I say it and I have to, you know, take some Pepto-Bismol so I don't vomit before I go on stage. So I'm not afraid. I know that those listening to me are on my side. Why? Because they want to hear what I have to say. So I will say what I have to say and give to them. That's how he gets past the virtue of the assembly, past stage fright. Right? Now, it helps to practice. If people have serious stage fright, it's definitely, there is help from people who've been through it. And here I am preaching this, the fivefold fears and how to get past them. And with my friend Steve Boffman, I have taught a class called Meditation for Musicians, where in a music festival, I'm there talking to other musicians about just exactly this, how to be on stage and how to encounter the jitters, that arise when it's your turn to play. And I'm there, in the chair of the teacher, the expert, and then pick up the guitar and it's time to play. And my hand turns to clay. I can't play. And I tighten up and my fingers get all thick, and it's a real experience. So how interesting that the Buddha pointed out stage fright as one of the fivefold fears common to living beings and how to get rid of them. Okay, so there we are. That's one of the issues that we're meeting today. It is indeed an issue. When you meet someone who has conquered stage fright, oh my, that is someone who is devoted to the gift they want to give. Next, ready? Coming on here. 借问具足念众生，借问具足念众生，地处垢秽心明界，地处垢秽心明界，观察世间三毒火，观察世间三毒火，广大界者去三谛，广大界者去三谛。Mindful of living beings, he acquires the precepts. Mindful of living beings, he acquires the precepts to cleanse away defilement, his mind pure and clear. To cleanse away defilement, his mind pure and clear. He contemplates the fire of three poisons in the world. He contemplates the fire of three poisons in the world. With vast understanding, he reaches the third stage. With vast understanding, he reaches the third stage. Okay. Now, one of the things that I've been enjoying is the Saturday afternoon lecture series organized by Madalena Tam Lectures, that is called 我的师父, my teacher, Master Shen Hua. Madalena was one of Shifu's early disciples back in Hong Kong, and then she and her sister Stella brought Shifu to the West, to America. And she told about her experiences with Shifu, and then invited other disciples who encountered Master Hua to tell their stories. And the series is back underway now, and we're hearing from folks who had that personal encounter with a sage and what it was like. And what's coming clear to me is that Shifu really gave us these jewels to carry on. It's like he stuffed our backpacks full and gave us sturdy boots and said, now go walk, And he wanted us to innovate Rufa within the Dharma, but to innovate the methods suited to our time and culture. And one of the things that people will look back on this time as is the rise of the podcast, right? Especially under lockdown, there are podcasts, everybody's got a podcast or is working on one. And one of the real pioneers of short and long form radio broadcasting is a guy named Ira Glass. And Ira Glass's contribution was This American Life, which was one of the early, This American Life was wonderful radio show. It was on public radio. And Ira told stories. Ira invited storytellers to tell their stories, long form stories. And because of the length of the cast, the length of the story, he used music in a very creative, supportive way. And you didn't listen to unbroken voice for a long time. You listened to voice and music would swell, and then silence as the voice would stop, the music would continue, the music would die down, and the voice would continue. So as I listened, I was a fan of This American Life, and I would feel different parts of my brain activate as the voice would tell a story, moving it forward, the narrative, and then the music would come unsupported, not compete with it. It wasn't too loud, but then the music would take over and my right brain would fire up. And I would see space, and I would see colors and structures. And then the left brain narrative would continue. So putting these things together, Shifu's traditional sutra lecture that he gave every night for 30 years, Shifu was a wonderful storyteller. He would look at the audience and know when we were not focused, or when the principle had been particularly deep, or the story had been the text had been a lot of lists of things, and he would throw in something to help us digest. And he would often scold the disciples sitting down below, or encourage them, or make a joke, just to keep us going. And so I think with all that in mind, my version of uninterrupted 45 minutes of voice is probably not the way to do it. So I'm going to give a song now, share a song. And what I had in mind, we are mindful of the disaster on the railroad line between Taipei and Taitung. As the train was heading into Hualien, there was a train accident recently in Taiwan, and over 50 people passed away and almost 200 were injured. And it was a major crisis for so many families in Taiwan. It was genuinely a tragedy, and the answers are still coming as the cause of it. But I wanted to share a song, and at the end of today's lecture, we're going to be transferring as well to the souls who died in the disaster and those whose lives were impacted by it. Better times will come, better times will come, when this world learns to live as one. Oh, better times will come. 明天会更好。When we greet each dawn without fear, knowing loved ones soon will be near. When the winds of war cannot blow anymore, oh, better times will come. 面对困难毫不畏惧，亲朋好友不离不弃。好伤如苦，麻烦难上，明天一定会更好。Scroll up here. Better times will come. Better times will come. When this world learns to live as one, oh, better times will come. 明天会 会更好，明天会更好，世界和谐，心大同，明天一定会更好。Though we live each day as our last, we know someday soon it will pass. We will dance, we will sing in that never-ending spring. Oh, better times will come. 生死转瞬一息之间，黑暗夜晚变幻间，安安心生大地会出，明天一定会更好。Okay, last time, here we go. 明天会更好，明天会更好，世界和谐，心大同，明天一定会更好。Better times will come, better times will come. When this world learns to live as one, better times will come. Thanks to Janice Ian for that song. What did the Bodhisattva do when he moved on? Master the successive stages. He was mindful of living beings and he acquires the precepts. To cleanse away defilement, his mind pure and clear, contemplates the fire of three poisons, and then goes to the third stage. So each of these verses about the stage, the next stage, mentions the successive stage. So look at this. She is really a beginner, honestly. Because why? Hasn't got the precepts yet, and the mind still has lots of defilement. What is defilement? It's not judgment defilement. It's not, oh, you're dirty and we're pure. It's not that. It's thoughts. Typically, three poisons: greed, anger, and delusion. The Bodhisattva has understood in the first stage that he wants to get everybody happy. He understands the path to happiness. He's on the stage of happiness now. He's made these vows. I'm going to do these things. This will happen. The Bodhi resolve is my new center in order to teach those living beings that I have to do to get to Buddhahood. I need to find out what's wrong with living beings. Well, he looked in his mind. That's the best place. She looked in her mind. That's the best place. And what she saw there was, yeah, lots of greed, which can be what? Just, I'm not satisfied with the way things are. That's greed. I want everything to be different than it is. I don't take responsibility. I blame someone else, right? You made me do it. Well, that's a greed. That's a poison in the mind that we have. Every living being's got a quotient of it, but it makes me unable to be full right now. That's why it's a poison. Poisons kill, right? They make me very sick. Anger, the result of unsatisfied greed. I want what I want so badly, and when it doesn't happen, I just explode. And then delusion follows. I see things the way they're not. I really believe in things that are the big lie, right? The Bodhisattva sees that and says, that's my next goal, to get rid of those things in my mind. Never mind everybody else. I need to deal with the defilement, the greed, anger, and delusion that comes with being a living being. right? It's not that I'm cursed. It's not that somebody else is better off. We've all got it. Beings in the hells have nothing but this ignorance. Beings in the heavens have less than humans, but they still have it. Only when you get to arhatship have you gotten rid, right? They say that if you can transform desire in your mind, you can enter samadhi, the dhyanas. So you can be in the heavens and really have transformed desire, seeking outside for things that are full inside. Okay, that's defilement. His mind now, her mind now, pure and clear. Okay, that's the second stage of li go di, leaving defilement behind. Now, I dug out the text of the second stage, and this is one of those moments. I said at the beginning of our talk today that I was going to share some of my stories, and I'll just start here. In the second stage, in the stage of leaving defilement, the RD, there's this incredible section where the Buddha says, here are the precepts. And he also talks about, here are the 10 good deeds. And they mesh in a very interesting way. The 十善十恶 and the 五戒, right? 5 precepts, the 10 wholesome deeds. In this chapter, the Buddha says, there are 10 things that people do that obstruct them from the path. Living beings create obstacles for themselves because of these 10. That's why he calls them evil. 十恶, right? 重恶, they call it. Why are they evil? What is evil? Evil and good? Because they're not good. They prevent us from liberation. That's why they're called evil. They're really harmful. And they don't belong to anyone. They're nobody's possession. But if I don't recognize them, if I haven't had this education, this Dharma education, then I won't recognize them. And I'll clutch them to my chest as my best friend, right? Okay. In the second stage, here, that's where the Buddha lays them out. And he does it so clearly, so undeniably. Like if the Buddha were a lawyer, he would win every case, because here it is. 华严经第2离垢第10重恶的果报. The Buddha's applied teachings, cause and effect. What happens to our lives when we do 10 evil deeds? All 10 of them have this framework. This is the structure that the Buddha puts around these 10. He says, the offense of, and there's 10 that follow. What are they? 3 with the body, killing, stealing, lust. 4 with the mouth, lying, double-tongued speech, harsh speech, frivolous speech. 3 with the mind, greed, anger, delusion. If, he says, these offenses can cause you to lose your human body and become a hell dweller, an animal, or a ghost. Suppose it's not that bad, or you have enough blessings to keep you in the human realm, but you come back, you will have 2 kinds of retribution, says the Buddha. Okay, that's the framework. That's the structure. You still with me? Everybody following? This is a lot. You got to hold this in your mind. But in the second stage, the Buddha says, right, these evil deeds can knock you out of the human realm. If they don't, and you come back as a human, if you did those 10 things, 3 with the body, 4 with the mouth, 3 with the mind, you're going to be a human, but you're going to have a difficult life, because here's what's going to happen. Okay, the Buddha says it that way. He says, for example, the offense of killing can cause beings to fall to the hells, animals, and ghosts. If they're born among people, you're going to come back, but you'll have a short lifespan and you'll be sick a lot. Because why? You killed, and you could have lost your human body in your next life, but you came back as a human, and look, you don't live long and you're sick. That's the retribution. Then stealing, what's the retribution? You're poor. 2, your wealth is held in trust. You don't get to use it. Tax returns don't come to you. Money that should, you don't get it, right? Because you stole it from others. Sexual misconduct. You come back as a human, but guess what? Your spouse is unfaithful. You get cheated on. And 2, the people around you don't please you. Your zhenshu, your community, your follower, your family are not people that you like. You don't like them. You can't get along with them because you yourself did 邪淫之罪, 邪淫之罪, 令众生堕三恶道, right? Now, this, what I'm sharing with everybody, I want to help out my translator. That's here in that text, second stage text, right? It's down here. This is down below here. If you're struggling with this, is hard to follow. But if you pull up your text, you have right here. Okay. 杀生之罪，亦令众生堕三恶道。若生人中，得二种果报，一者短命，二者多病。Okay, so each this is, here it is, 偷盗之罪. What's this one? 邪淫之罪，亦令众生堕三恶道。若生人中，得二种果报，一者其不正良。Excuse me. All that rain. 二者不得随意捐属. So here's the Chinese. Okay, you should follow that. This one is really powerful. It says, if in some life, maybe in this life, maybe in past lives, you didn't follow the rules, sexual relationships, your spouse in this life cheats on you, and the people around you won't accord with you. Okay, so there we go. Now, I'm going to not give you all 10 because of time constraints. But what I wanted to share was, when I was a pilgrim heading to City of 10,000 Buddhas, along with Bhikshu Heng Chao, Marty Verhoeven, every night we would study the Avatamsaka Sutra. And we crossed the Golden Gate Bridge. We were in Marin County, bowing north on Highway 1, Pacific Coast Highway, waves crashing under the wheels of our car. And at night, we would open the Avatamsaka. We were right here, second stage, DRD. And we got to the next 4 about speech. And it's so powerful. I had a turning point in my life, a milestone that changed things for me. Master Hua, when I took refuge, gave me the name Guozhen. He said, "You lie too much," he said. Guozhen means the fruition of the truth. Someone who will get the fruition when they tell the truth, and also who needs to focus on the words, the results of the words they say. So it's both an indictment of where you are now and also a promise of what can become. You can speak true if you transform yourself. When I became a monk, when I took the full precepts, he named me Heng Shi, constantly real, and Zhen and Shi mean true and real. The problem being, again, the habit of false speech. Now, how does that come down in reality? I never considered myself. I call it telling a good story, but I exaggerated, right? And for me, it wasn't important to tell the truth as much as saying words that would get me liked, saying words that people would like me more. That was what That was what most important for me growing up. Not because my parents taught me that or my siblings. That was me, my own personal take. And from Master Hua's instructions, it's a habit that I've carried forever, but I didn't know it. I was in theater and my value came from being able to convince you that I was somebody whom I wasn't. I was the actor, I was the character on stage. But what about when you're off stage? If the character is still going, that's called being phony, being false, right? But for me, that was the way to be popular, right? People would like me, find me more interesting than just a kid from Toledo, right? So I didn't know the difference till I met my teacher, and I still didn't get it until I got to the Avatamsaka. So here we are. I'm going to move you past the offense of lying is retribution. You get slandered if you lie. Furthermore, people will cheat you. Double-tongued speech, one, if the retribution is your community will split because you used your tongue to split people up. Furthermore, your caste, your class status will be low. If you break other people up with your language, the result is you are always looking up at others. Harsh speech, right? Swearing, profanity, four-letter words, you always hear disagreeable sounds. And two, your words always lead to lawsuits. People are always attacking you for your words. And this is the one, the offense of loose speech, which is what? Loose speech is defined as trying to make others, I'm sorry, I said I got off in the wrong foot. Loose speech is defined as prattle, just rattling on. 话匣子 in Chinese, a talking box. You know, 谈不停, you never stop talking. Just this constant using language to fog the brain. And the other kind of loose speech is defined as words that lead to other people scattering. So dirty jokes, for example, loose speech. What else? Always jesting, always joking around, never getting serious, right? Always wanting to provoke a laugh, kind of the jester. Maybe you had somebody in your circle who was like that. Well, I was that way. I wanted people to laugh because if they laughed, they would like me, right? That was kind of my habit. Okay, so I never considered that to be evil speech, harmful speech, false speech, until that night, Marin County, February, wet winter weather, in the Plymouth with a oil kerosene lamp lit, the Avatamsaka Sutra open, hearing the rain fall on the roof of the station wagon we were sitting in, and coming across this language. The offense of loose speech can cause you to lose your human body. If you come back as a human, you'll get two kinds of retribution. One, people will not accept what you say. Two, your speech will not be clearly understood. When I read those words, I was transported back. It's just kind of like a movie where you see a flashback. I was back in high school and college. I was already not a boy anymore. I was a young man on my own, and I had to make my way. You know, nobody was covering for me. I was in a circle of peers, classmates, friends, and people were saying, what? Nah. And I was saying, that's not what I meant. You didn't understand. No, that's not what I meant. What I meant to say was, and then I would give my opinion again, they would go, nah. Nobody valued the things I contributed as a member of the circle. They were always like, even to the point where they would exclude me from decisions because the things I said didn't count. Or I would speak and they would hear it wrong, mishear it. And that was frustrating, so frustrating. When I saw this text, and it said, the offense of frivolous, loose speech has a retribution. When you speak this way and send it out to the world, guess what? The ripples of making other people laugh is when you want to talk true, nobody accepts it. Or the things you say deliberately go wrong. Not deliberately, just sort of magically. It went wrong. They didn't get it. The things I wanted, no. When I saw that, suddenly I was looking at a mirror. Right? I was looking at a mirror. Here's the Chinese goes right here. Let's see, 两舌, or 恶口. Here it is right here. 其语之罪，一令众生堕三恶道。若生人中，得二种果报。一者言无人受，二者语不明了。Right? That was it. And we actually were reading it in Chinese because we didn't have a nice translation at the time. And when I saw this, it was like, number one, people won't accept the words you say. Number two, what you say is misunderstood. It's like, oh my goodness. In other words, that constant frustration that I experienced once I was a young adult and wanting to kind of, make my mark among my friends, I had this kind of a net around me. I couldn't see through it, of my words being twisted. Now, luckily, on the pilgrimage, I was keeping a vow of silence. And I was able to see that so deeply that was the way I had wired my mouth and the words in my mind. So even though I wanted to speak straight, because I had made the habit of being the joker, being the jester, and the funny guy, right? Wanting a laugh more than anything else so I could be popular, quote, I had rewired my communication apparatus to where it was not working for me. Seeing that in this mirror on a cold, wet February night in the dark with an oil lantern lit and the Avatamsaka Sutra there after bowing in silence for a day was a wake-up. And I can remember it so clearly to this day, that it was like the sutra is talking to me. This is what Shifu meant when he said, you can't do without the sutras for a single day, right? They are like a blueprint to your life. If your life were a house, they're like a roadmap to where you want to go with your life. They're like a mirror where you see your true face. And boy, what I saw in that mirror was ugly. And at the same time, it was the path ahead. It was how to transform. Because why? Earlier in the text, what did the text say? There was a piece of the sutra that preceded the two retributions. And it said, the Bodhisattva always delights in thoughtful, examined speech, in appropriate speech, in true speech, meaningful speech, lawful speech, speech that accords with principles of the Tao, skillfully taming and regulating speech, speech that is reckoned and measured according to the time and which is decisive. This Bodhisattva, even when making jokes, always weighs his words, so how much the less would he deliberately pour out scattered and abandoned talk. There was the salvation, all right? So, Wang Shang, here it is. Here is, how compassionate is the sutra when it says, yeah, here's what's going to happen if you do it wrong. But you know what? You can do it right. And if you want to do it right, look what happens. Here's how a bodhisattva does it. Right here. This is the one. 性不奇语，菩萨常乐思身语，时语，时语，意语，法语，顺道理语，巧善调语，巧调伏语，随时抽量确定语，使菩萨乃至细笑，上恒思身，何况故出善乱之言。Right? There you go. And it's not that the bodhisattva is a spoil sport. You know, he's not a sourpuss, never jokes. No, Shifu was humorous. He was fun to be around. He could laugh and make you laugh at will. But he did it when the time was right, when it was useful, when it was helpful, not out of a desire to be popular. 求名, right? 名誉, wanting to be popular is a desire. And I was motivated by a desire to fool you into thinking I was somebody special and different. So I would tell you a joke instead of saying something truthful or thoughtful, the way the Bodhisattva talks. So, wow, how wonderful to have the sutra say, this is the healing of that illness. Here's how you can talk once you decide to make the Bodhi resolve. Once you decide to help others wake up and become a Buddha. So the Putishin, the Bodhi resolve, is that key, right? After you make the Bodhi resolve, suddenly your priorities fit with the Tao, with the Bodhisattva path. All right, our time has come to an end. That was my story, my turning point in my life that happened from meeting the Avatamsaka Sutra. And I have one quick story here I want to share from something wonderful called coronavirus. Has everybody seen coronavirus? It's a website. You type it in. It's coronavirus.org, right? Coronavirus is the illness. Karuna is the Sanskrit word for compassion. So a coronavirus means when we are compassionate, it is catching. Just, it's contagious, right? Here's an example, some news. On March 12th, an anonymous donor visited a Dunkin' Donuts drive-thru in Beaver Creek, Ohio, and made a big pay it forward gesture. The donor initially wanted to buy a $1,000 gift card to pay for the rest of the day's orders on behalf of future customers. The store didn't sell $1,000 gift cards, Dunkin' Donuts franchise. The donor was asked to come into the store to figure it out. So the donor decided to give $4,000 worth of donuts to future customers. The gift cards lasted from Friday night all the way to the next morning. General Manager Samantha Owen said, a lot of people were ecstatic and surprised. They were like, are you sure? I was just so happy that the donor chose this location, honestly, for something great like this to happen, because we love our regulars, we love our customers. How kind is that, right? So somebody who valued generosity over wealth, wanted to give it away. And here's another individual. Look at this guy, an 82-year-old on a bike with plastic bags. He looks like he might be a homeless guy. He's in cold, cold weather. He's got earmuffs on, got his mask on, got a ball cap on. And who is it? It's a sweet older guy who brings 700 to 900 aluminum cans to all metal recycling twice a week. He's not homeless, as some people think when they see him foraging in dumpsters. It's Gary Gates, a dedicated environmentalist who spent 19 years managing the multi-billion Wisconsin pension system before he retired in 1993. Since the early 1980s, He's collected 2 million aluminum cans, donating the proceeds to environmental causes. If people who think he's homeless insist on giving him money, he just tosses that into the kitty. He has recycled 2 million aluminum cans. He used to be the Wisconsin manager of the Wisconsin pension system, paying Social Security money to elders. So talk about good roots. Here is someone who will never know scarcity, because he is making abundance available to others. All right, go to coronavirus online on your web. There's so many wonderful stories. Okay, so at this point, I would like to invite one of the monks, or more than one, monks from Berkeley Monastery, to tell us what's going on and give us some good words.
Okay, good evening, everyone. In terms of programs for Berkeley Monastery, we have our regular schedule, starting with morning ceremony, meditation, Dharma reflections at 7:15. Dharma Master has a schedule right there. 7:30, we have 3 steps, 1 bow, which you want to get a little bit of exercise. And then 12:30 to 1, we have Amitabha recitation every day, our Guanyin recitation, our evening ceremony, mantra heart. And then we have a number of classes as well. So Reverend Heng Sher gives the knowledge lecture in the Universal Door chapter of the Lotus Sutra at 12:30 to 1:30 p.m. California time. Jing Fosher is lecturing on the Infinite Life Sutra on Thursday nights. And we have Marty lecturing on the Avatamsaka on Friday nights at 7:30 or 8:15. So that's what's going on in the monastery. We also have a special event if people are interested. Ajahn Suchito will be lecturing on unseating the inner tyrant. It's not on the website, but it's for a DRBU event hosted by Spiritual Life. And that will be on Saturday, April 10th from 9 to 10:15 a.m. It's going to be mostly for the DRBU students, but people want to listen in, you're welcome to. If you're interested in getting information, please email info@berkeleymonastery.org and we'll send you the Zoom link to join that. Okay, so that's our regular programs.
All righty, thank you for that. Okay, well, we have reached the end of our regularly allotted time here for our sutra investigation. And I wanted to again express gratitude to the volunteers who give their time week after week to bring this these talks out to the world. And we will continue investigating the verses of the 10th stage coming up. There were 143 of us today on YouTube. And how many Chinese listeners? 56 listening in China. All right. Lovely. Okay. So can we transfer the merit now? We're going to use our Medicine Buddha mantra. And I know my transference is going out in particular to the families and friends impacted by the train catastrophe in eastern Taiwan, near Hualien. So we're reciting Medicine Buddha's mantra in particular because there is some signs that cases are spiking, cases of coronavirus are spiking around the world. We may be heading to more lockdowns, which of course people are exhausted and burned out and they don't want to go back into their space again. But that may be the only thing that defeats these new variant strains. So we have to be patient with impatient. Patience always wins in the end. And if we can learn this Medicine Buddha mantra to recite, it actually helps, sending out good energy, closing the doors to the evil destinies, opening the roads to humans, devas, nirvana. samudara avyapa om asaji 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 samudate swaha bhagavate asajya guru madhurya prabharajana arhate samudara avyapa om asaji asaji samudate swaha asajya guru madhurya prabharajana arhate samudara avyapa asaji asaji samudate swaha. I've got my handbell here, and I'll ring it 3 times, and we can do 3 half bows. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. See you all next week. Thanks for joining. Om Mani Padme.